Once upon a time, in a large deep lake there lived a horrible dragon. He usually slept at the bottom of the lake during the day. Only then did the people from the city dare to go to the lake to get some water. But sometimes the dragon could not sleep during the day. Then he came out of the lake, and people preferred to stay as far away from the dragon as possible. The dragon was so big that its broad tail covered the entire shore of the lake. He had sharp teeth and scary green eyes. One day in the afternoon, a little boy had been playing outside the city gate, and he came running very quickly into the booth. "The dragon is out," he shouted. "He's heading towards town now." The people closed the doors and the windows of their homes. As the evening came, and the people heard that the dragon was coming along the road that led to the city, his broad tail scraped the cobblestones and the ground shook. When the dragon stood at the city gate and found it closed, he blew flames out his nostrils in anger. A few moments later, the city gate was on fire. It did not take a long time until the city gate was burned to the ground. The dragon walked slowly through the booth and looked in through all the windows. The woman began to scream, and all the children screamed in fear, and the men were so afraid of the dragon that they hid away. "The dragon must be hungry," the people shouted. "He's looking for food." A few people were so scared that they gathered their homes, but the dragon made no effort to catch them. He roared once very loudly and breathed fire from his nostrils again. Then he turned and walked back to the lake. The next morning, the king summoned the wisest man in the land. His name was Balthazar. "Do you know what the dragon is looking for?" asked the king. "The dragon is looking for the most beautiful girl in the city," said Balthazar. "And when he finds her, he will eat her." The king was very shocked, for he knew that the most beautiful girl in town was his own daughter, the princess. "I can't let the dragon eat her," said the king desperately. The next night the dragon came to town again, and again he set a row of houses on fire. The people went to the king's palace. "You must give your daughter to the dragon," they said. "The whole city will burn down." The king knew he had no choice but to give the princess to the dragon. The unfortunate princess was tied to a stake outside of the city. Later that day, the dragon came out of the lake again. He saw the princess from a distance. He started walking towards the princess. Just then, a knight, he rode up on his horse. The knight stopped at the lake to give his horse a drink. The knight's name was Joris, and he was the bravest man in the country. When his horse had drunk enough, he rode towards the city, and there he saw the dragon, which was near the princess. The princess trembled with fear. She could feel the hot breath of the hideous beast on her face. The knight urged his horse and rode at a gallop towards the dragon. "Stop!" he shouted. "I am Joris, the bravest knight in the land. You will not get the princess until you have fought with me." The dragon turned around in anger, and he blew fire from his nostrils, but the armor of the knight, George, protected him from the flames. Joris lowered the visor of his helmet and charged forward in a gallop, with his lance aimed at the dragon. But the dragon bit the lance in half. He grabbed Joris with his large claws and pulled him from his horse. Then Joris grabbed his knee. He stuck it in the place where he thought the dragon's heart would be, but the dragon had no heart. And then he struck his axe, and his axe broke into 20 pieces. Then the dragon hit George so hard with his tail that he fell to the ground. Joris scrambled to his feet and drew his sword. He charged at the dragon and plunged the sword straight into the dragon's belly. The hideous monster roared in rage and pain, and then fell backwards. Its large claws reached into the air. George pulled his sword from the dragon's belly. He raised it again, and in one fell swoop, he struck off the head of the hideous monster. The dragon was dead. When the people heard that the dragon was dead, they came out of their houses. The people who had watched the battle from the city walls clapped and cheered with joy. Joris, Joris, George, freed the princess, and they walked hand in hand to the palace. How happy the king was when he saw his daughter again. You saved my daughter's life, he said to Joris. You can wish for whatever you want. Joris didn't have to think about it for long. I would like to marry your daughter, he said to the king. At the very next day, Joris, the bravest knight in the country, married the princess, and they lived happily ever after.